A black South African man deserving of grace? Do we maybe need to extend grace to black South African men? Keyword, black South African man. Hi tubers, and a very warm welcome to my YouTube channel. If you haven't already, please do subscribe, like, share, and most importantly, leave a comment on the comment section right below for more interactions. Now tubers, let's get straight right into it. About a couple of days ago, Nandi Madida, formerly known as Nandi Ngoma, a musician and a TV presenter, went on to the El Tito podcast where she briefly spoke about a couple of things. Amongst those things, what stood out for me are two things that she mentioned. One of them being that she said she felt that South African black women need to extend some grace to black South African men. This whole interview caused an uproar on social media. It caused a huge frenzy. A lot of people lost their shit on Twitter over this because we got to see a lot of South African women, and we got to understand their perspective on what they thought about this and how they felt about black South African men being extended some grace. And it's safe to say that a lot of people, specifically women on social media, completely disagreed with what Nandi Ngoma was saying. But before we break it a little bit further down, I just want us to watch two separate clips from this podcast, from the El Tito podcast, that I feel really need to be discussed and need to be broken down a little bit further. Watch this.
Very genuine way. Seriously, our black men have gone through so much. Mm-hmm. And financially, it is almost impossible to try empower yourself, even when you try. You know, the system's against you. You know, people don't have support from the government. You have 400 years of being, oppressed. Where is this money going to come from? You know? And so we do have to give our fellow black men grace. And if you can see, the intention is to do better, and make someone something serious. That's a good guy.
Yeah.
And I mean that genuinely. I always say that, black men, particularly, I'm going to speak about South Africa because I'm proudly South African. You guys are up against so much.
And I think it's interesting because we never have these conversations. And the rhetoric and the narrative out there is like, yeah, I am not Bob the Builder. I'm not building any man. And we're not saying take a guy that's a bum, that has no vision, that has no ambition, and make him your man. But it's like everyone is still working on themselves. I think we judge each other like very harshly. We're looking for people who are already made or who are like already perfect. And I think that's why there's so much miscommunication between males and females.
So well said. Yeah. I mean, obviously now there's more pressure because of social media. So there's this misconception that there should be no struggle.
Yeah.
Or just, get the bag. And that's not realistic. In a real world, in everyday world, you're trying the best you can.
Okay. So that was the two video clips from the El Tito podcast in which Nandi was speaking about. One thing I want to address first, she is definitely speaking from a point of privilege. Nandi Ngoma is obviously married to an amazing man. So you think this woman is going to trash that man? You think she's going to talk shit about black men when all she's experienced is nothing but probably beautiful and amazing affection from her husband? You've seen this play out quite a number of times. You've seen it in your friend circle. If you're a woman and you have a girlfriend who happens to be in a beautiful relationship, they will worship and they will sing praises about the man that they're in a relationship with, because that is a beautiful and a happy relationship from them. Everybody speaks from what they are currently experiencing. So when that uproar took place on social media, where a lot of women were cursing and swearing and calling Nandi names and were mad at her for saying what she said, it's because they've experienced quite the opposite. They have not experienced a beautiful, loving man. What is my stance on this? I do think that Nandi is speaking from a place of privilege. If Nandi had experienced GBV, if she grew up in a household where she had to watch her father being abusive to her mother, she would definitely be singing a different tune about men. A lot of people that were voicing out their opinions on Twitter and were completely against what Nandi Ngoma is saying are women that are coming from a bruised place. These are women that are coming from a place of hurt. They've never in their lives experienced an amazing black man I know this because what would make a person come out and say, oh, she's speaking bullshit, oh, she's speaking nonsense, there's no such thing? You're telling me that with all these men that we live with in South Africa, none of them is perfect, none of them is doing right by their women. There's plenty of good men in South Africa. There's plenty of black South African men. The only problem is that it's not every one of us that has gotten the opportunity to experience that. And I feel that's where the uproar stemmed from. It stemmed from a place of these people have never experienced what Nandi is talking about. They cannot resonate. They cannot relate to what she's saying. So therefore, they were taking out their anger on Nandi. But I do also want to say that my stance being the fact that Nandi is definitely speaking from a place of privilege doesn't necessarily mean that what she's saying is not the truth. I do believe what Nandi is saying. You know, there is some truth to what she said. If you think about it, the dating pool alone, and I'm not just talking about marriage now, I'm talking about dating. The dating pool alone in South Africa is a complete mess. Girls do not want to date a broke ass nigga in 2026. Nobody wants to get with a man who's not going to be able to take them out on dates, who's not going to be able to buy them flowers, who's not going to be able to give them what has become now known as the girlfriend allowance. We live in a day and age where monetary things have really been placed forward more than anything else. And if you listen carefully to what Nandi Ngoma is talking about in this interview, she's actually specifically talking about that. You need to go and watch this interview to understand this before you can have an opinion on it, because I had to watch it twice to understand, okay, she is coming from a place of privilege with what she's saying. She's married to an amazing man who's probably financially taking care of her, who probably is very good at communication, who's probably very good at every other thing that Nandi believes is a perfect man, right? But again, the dating pool has become such a mess that it is starting to look like South African girls are after money. South African girls do not want to get with a guy who's not going to be able to take them out on a trip somewhere in Cape Town or even out of the country. You know, South African girls want these things. And I will also not look at that and say it's a bad thing or a wrong thing. People have preferences, you know, and what we choose to take in relationships is different from each person, right? Here is a woman that speaks about, I think when she says we need to extend grace to black men, she means we need to be a little bit more lenient when it comes to we need to be a little bit more open-minded, and we need to take into consideration the fact that the economy is different, right? Some of our black educated young men do not really have that type of a job. They don't really work the type of jobs that would be able to sustain these things that are needed in a relationship by young black South African women. Most South African men are not able to really plan these trips out of town because of the economy. I think that's what Nandi Ngoma is talking about. I think she's coming from a point of saying we need to be a little bit more understanding. We need to extend them some grace. We need to extend them some courtesy to say, this is what the economy looks like. There are certain stuff, there are specific things that we're not going to be able to get from black men at this point in time because of what the South African economy looks like. Because if you listen to the interview, she also goes on to speak about the standards that have been placed by social media on black young men. Now, you and I both know that she's absolutely right about that. The social media has made us believe that we need to have cars by 20 years. You need to have a beautiful apartment by 23. These things are highly impossible given the social given the economy of South Africa. It's highly impossible for these things to already be taking place. It's highly impossible to attain these things at those specific ages. If you're lucky enough to get a job by that age, a well-paying job, then well, good for you. You're able to attain this, that, and the other. But for most South Africans, that's not the case. And I think that's where Nandi Ngoma is coming from. Now, another person that stepped into this conversation was Dineo Ranaka. Dineo Ranaka had a few things to say, which were in agreement with a lot of females on social media. She was completely against what Nandi is saying. But then again, I don't want to bash Dineo Ranaka, right? But come on, given everything that we know about Dineo on social media, I mean, she has openly lived her life. There is absolutely nothing we haven't seen from Dineo Ranaka at this point, but we need to be honest. Obviously, Dineo had a few things that were not so palatable about what Nandi Mngoma was saying, right? She came out and completely disagreed with what Nandi was saying, which, by the way, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Two things can exist at the same time. If I'm being quite honest, Dineo's perspective is not too far off. Dineo is coming from a place of her own experiences and what she has experienced with black men. So we cannot discredit her feelings. We cannot discredit what she's been through with black South African men or what she has seen with black South African men. But we also cannot discredit the number of good South African men that are very loving and are present fathers and do not partake in GBV in South Africa. We have to give those men credit. But all in all, when everything is said and done, taking all of this into consideration, I do want to say these women are both right. Two things can be truth at the same damn time. We need to extend grace to black men. Yes, maybe we do. But are they deserving of such? I don't think so. Look, it is entirely, I think this is entirely based off of what you've experienced, what you have seen, what you are currently going through. You need to make a choice as a black young woman. Are you gonna extend grace to black men or not? If you won't, I am very much understanding of that because I can completely get where that stance could be coming from. If you've never experienced a loving black man, if you've never experienced a man that has extended the same thing to a black woman, then why would you want to do that to a man who doesn't even bother? If that's who you're surrounded by, I completely get your stance. If you like, I am not going to partake in that. I don't feel like South African black men are deserving of being extended some grace because we have experienced a high number of GBV in this country. We've experienced a high number of femicide. How many cases do you know of where a South African woman was killed and found someplace? Now we know that the people that are committing these crimes are black South African men. So I think a lot of these women that are like, nope, South African men do not deserve grace at all. These are women that have seen this happen firsthand. They've seen how abusive some South African black men can be. And they don't want to partake. They don't want to partake in that whole extend grace to them nonsense. But I can also understand women that have experienced the quite opposite with South African black men. Those that are like, no, we are definitely going to give our brothers some grace. They are deserving of that. My father has been an amazing and loving and a present father to me. So therefore, I have no reason to hate black men. I can completely understand those as well. But all in all, I think the uproar is simply from the fact that South African men have really bashed a lot of South African women, which makes it a little bit hard to kind of take your side sometimes. How many times have you heard black South African men speak ill of single mothers? Which is very crazy to me because the mere fact that a woman can be a single mother to begin with is because of your doing as a black South African man. How many times have you heard South African black men speak ill of single mothers, speak ill of women? And the next man would not even come to a woman's defense. I think it's cases like that coupled with the fact that the number of women that are being killed in South Africa is ridiculously high, that it's sometimes very hard to side with black South African men. A lot of horrible things are happening in this country, and South African men do not step in to stand with women. And yet, when it comes to them, all of a sudden, we need to extend grace to them. So, look, one more time, I just want to say this. Two things can be truth at the same damn time. Two things can exist at the same time. It's easy to extend grace to black men if you've experienced loving black men in your family, in your community, in your surroundings, at work, wherever it could be. It's also very easy to say, we are not extending any grace to these men. They have not been kind to us. They have called us names. They have degraded and treated us like shit from from the very beginning, and therefore we are not extending grace to them. I think men need to also be a little bit open-minded to the women that are not willing to extend grace to them. They need to understand where these women are coming from. But all in all, I do think Dineo was stepping into the conversation, really kind of spiced things up. It was quite interesting to hear her point of view from this. A lot of us are not really surprised. I mean, knowing what we know about Dineo Ranaka, we expected that, right? We expected an opinion or a perspective of the one that she provided. But anyways, tubers, please tell me what you think of this conversation on the comment section right below. Thank you so much for watching this. Hopefully we'll see you again on the next one, and have an amazing one.